Damn everything.
Care for more coffee, my lord?
The emotions, Bunter. What a terrible thing.
I believe they are, my lord.
You're being flippant, Bunter, and I'm not in a flippant mood. Just over 2 weeks to go.
Miss Vane, my lord?
Miss Vane. Exactly so.
Your lordship has been involved in more hopeless cases and triumphed.
You're absolutely right. I've been wallowing, and the only course is action.
Much better thinking, my lord.
Philip Boyce's cousin, Urquhart. The account of that meal. Such detail. Bunter, I want you to play the Don Juan.
Don Juan, my lord?
Yes, indeed. You cut an impressive figure, if I may say so. You have a bold and roving eye, off-duty, a ready wit, and I'm persuaded that you have a way with you. What more could any cook or parlourmaid want?
Ah, the ladies in Mr. Urquhart's service.
I want you to deliver this to Mr. Urquhart of Woburn Square, and in the short space of time at your disposal, to insinuate yourself into the bosom of Mr. Urquhart's household. And pump the ladies about the said Urquhart.
I shall endeavour to insinuate myself to your lordship's satisfaction.
I've seen poor Mr. Boyce. And they sent for me to bring up the hot bottles. 3 they had. 1 to his feet, 1 to his back. The big rubber one to his stomach. Horrible white he was. Oh.
Green he looked to me, cook. Well, let's say greenish yellow. I thought it was a jaundice a-coming on. More like them attacks he had in the spring.
And you never saw such cramps.
Regular feature of these arsenical cases. Very distressing symptoms. Had he ever had anything of the sort before?
I know what you call cramps. When he was ill,
In the spring.
he complained of fidgets in his hands and feet.
Something like pins and needles, he said. Dreadful, wicked woman this Harriet Vane must be. Now, do have a crumpet, Mr. Bunter. Butter's melted nicely through. We'll have a little drop more against the damp, I'm sure.
After you, ladies.
Oh. Now, a bashing on the head, or the ace use of a carving knife when roused, I can understand. But the horrors of slow poisoning, it's the work of a fiend.
Fiend is the only word, Mrs. Pettigan.
When Mr. Urquhart told us about the digging up of Mr. Boyce and finding him full of nasty arsenic, gave me such a turn. And in our house.
But of course you had no difficulty in proving that the noxious substance had not been given to him in this house.
Oh, Mr. Urquhart put me through it so carefully about the questions I'd be asked.
Yes, the very next morning after Mr. Boyce was took ill, the master came down to us and he says...
Sitting in that chair as a friendly.
Just as you would be yourself, Mr. Bunter.
I'm afraid Mr. Boyce is very ill, he says. So I want you and Cook to run through everything we had for dinner last night.
To see if we can think what it could have been.
I don't see that Mr. Boyce could have had anything unwholesome here, I says. Because Cook and me had just the same and all as sweet as could be.
Except for the omelette, of course.
Oh, except for the omelette. They finished that off between them. And I remember asking Cook if they were the last 4 eggs in the house, because one was cracked.
Very far-seeing of Mr. Urquhart to take such precautions. When there was no thought at the time but that the poor man had died natural. Many's the case his lordship seen when an innocent man was brought near to the gallows for lack of such precautions.
And when I think of how near Mr. Urquhart was to being away from home at the time...
Oh, yes, Cook.
Well, it fair gave me palpitations. I called away he was to that tiresome old woman saw as a dying. Never dies. I was there now. Mrs. Rayburn up in Windle. Rich as sneezes she is by all accounts. Or so they say. And a wicked old woman she was too in her day. Her other relations wouldn't have nothing to do with her. Only Mr. Urquhart. And I don't suppose he wouldn't neither. Only he's her solicitor, and it's his duty so to do.
Duty does not always lie in pleasant places, as you and I well know, Mrs. Pettigan.
I pass no comments. But you and me, Mr. Bunter, know how the world goes.
I suppose Mr. Urquhart stands to gain something when the old woman does peg out.
That's as may be.
Stands to reason, doesn't it? I mean, he wouldn't be always giving up his time and tearing off to Westmoreland for nothing.
And the deceased, Mr. Boys, did he know all about the old gal?
Oh, yes, it's all in the family, you see. And no doubt Mr. Urquhart would have told him more than he'd say to us.
So that's Cremorne Garden.
Now the very ancient Mrs. Rayburn. Sic transit Gloria Mundi.
Where on earth did you dig it up?
Oh, there's a small establishment off St. Martin's Lane, my lord, dealing with ephemera and that sort of thing. They've got boxes and boxes of matinee idols, theatrical luminaries. Lily Langtry, the Divine Sarah, La Bella Tero. I must say I was rather fortunate to find Cremorne Garden.
You really are a marvel, Bunter.
I was curious about the lady, my lord, because of her connection with Mr. Urquhart and the deceased, Mr. Boys. According to Mrs. Pettican, she's a very wealthy lady indeed. And as you've so often said, my lord, where there's money, there's a motive for crime.